Good evening. Welcome to the Mob Museum. My name is Jeff Schumacher. I'm the Director of Content. And tonight we have the great honor of spending some time with Sandy Lansky, the daughter of Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky's name or his picture appears 20 times in our museum. I don't know if that's the highest number for any individual, but it's got to be right up there. I'm trying to imagine who would be named more often. The picture on the cover of Sandy's new book is a snapshot of her father and her in Israel. That picture happens to also appear in our museum.
It was taken by my son.
Taken by her son, that's correct. The book is titled Daughter of the King, and it's subtitled Growing Up in Gangland. It's a story of Sandy's life, and as the daughter of one of the most important organized crime figures in America. Sandy has come to Las Vegas from Tampa, where it's a bit cooler than it is here in Las Vegas. We've been enjoying such great weather here. Apparently, it isn't always warm in Florida, unfortunately. Sandy, welcome to Las Vegas, and welcome to the Mob Museum.
Thank you very much.
So Sandy and I are going to talk here on stage for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And then we'll take some questions from the audience. And then if you'd like to buy and have a book signed, Sandy will be happy to do that afterward. So we're going to get started by talking about your youth in New York and your family. And in the book, you describe having sort of a charmed life, a charmed childhood. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
I was the youngest of three children and the only girl. And I was spoiled rotten. In plain English, whatever I wanted, I got.
Mm-hmm. You know. Well, you would go to F.A.O. Schwartz, for example?
If Mommy wanted to go get her hair done, she had to take me to F.A.O. Schwartz first, and then I would go with her. At one time it was boxing gloves, and I would box with my girlfriend, who lived across the street. We made a ring. I had the bathroom stools as our corners. No, but dolls galore, everything.
Anything you wanted, pretty much.
Yeah.
And also, at this time, I think when you were young, you were got interested in horses.
Yeah.
And what were you doing?
Well, I didn't like ballet, and my mom. Well, she tried riding, and I was very cruel. I took a whip and I hit the horse and took off with her, and she would never get on again. And I loved the horses. That was my thing. I really did.
And you liked that better than school, I suspect.
Well, school was very difficult because I would start school in New York. Then we would leave and come down to Florida because Daddy had the casinos. And I'd have to start school in Florida. Then when the season was over in Florida, I was back in New York. And I had no friends. And my friends really were from the stable or the little girl that lived across the street from me. Mm-hmm. But she went to Catholic school. Actually, my two friends went to Catholic school.
Mm-hmm. You say you were spoiled rotten, but one thing I know, your father was very committed to education. How did that play out?
Oh, yes. At dinner, you had to go through the times tables. The quality of mercy is not strained. We did a little of that. We did a lot of things. He was very pro education.
And that wasn't your strong suit, though. At least later.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was terrible, and then I found old report cards, and I wasn't as bad as I thought I was.
So, talk about some about your father's associates whom you met. I think you met, pretty much everybody because he would take you out on the town, right? You would go to the theater, you'd go to the restaurants. They spoiled you too, I think.
Well, some of them did, I knew Frank Costello. I knew his wife, Bobby. I gave them a poodle when later on in life, when my poodle had puppies. Daddy said, "Why don't you bring one to Bobby?" And I did, because I would go and visit her. Then you had Ethel Rosen, mm-hmm. who also lived in that building. They lived in the Majestic. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Swifty Morgan to me.
Oh, I love Swifty Morgan. I don't know if anybody remembers Swifty Morgan. He was a real pixie, Oh, he sent a telegram to Frank Sinatra, and said that you have to bail me out of the hotel. You know what he meant? Bail him out with money, you know. And Frank Sinatra sent him a parachute.
Swifty had jewelry. Was that his?
Oh, yes, jewelry. He sold jewelry. He went around to all the nightclubs and the restaurants and stuff. He sold jewelry. And then King Levinsky would sell ties. He was the boxer. Mm-hmm. But then there was, you know, the Morettis and Joe Dodo, which was Joe Adonis, mm-hmm. and Longy's Willman. His wife was gorgeous.
Yeah.
His wife was really.
There was just these are all the names, you know, that appear in our museum on, you know, floor after floor, and these are people she knew personally. I was just thinking about Swifty and how I think you told me about the jewelry, and you would get some of this jewelry, but how
he would give it to me. Now, Jimmy Illo got very upset because he had given me a bracelet, and Jimmy bought that same bracelet. He had another one. And he said, well, where did you get it? I said, Swifty gave it to me. So.
As a young person, you certainly had just, you know, we talked about a charmed life, but there was one sad story. You talked about having dinner with Willie Moretti,
yeah.
And what happened?
Well, it was the night before. It was during the Cafalva hearings and everything, and we had dinner in Dinty Moore's, and Willie was talking a little too much, and Daddy was telling him to be quiet. And the next day at school, it was lunchtime, and I saw the headline in the paper, Willie had been shot dead, the afternoon newspaper. So they had to send me home from school.
Because you had been
I learned how to ride a bicycle on his brother's son's bike. I couldn't learn on a girl's bike. I had to learn on a boy's bike.
Wow.
So.
Was that sort of one of the first times you sort of recognized that there was more to this story than you expected?
Well, I didn't know what happened. I really didn't know what happened.
Just knew he was dead. Another story from when you were young is you tell in the book is when you were a young girl and you met Frank Sinatra. What happened there?
Oh, he tripped over the leg on the champagne bucket. He tripped over it, and the ice went all over me.
Oh my!
He went to say hello to Dad and the people at the table, but I don't think Daddy was very happy.
And Frank couldn't have been very happy either.
No, he was very nervous.
You mentioned that you would travel between Florida and New York, and your father had business interests down in Florida. What was happening down there at that time?
Well, he had the restaurants. Actually, they were casinos. You had fine shows. Mm-hmm. You had gambling. I didn't know about the gambling. I knew about the shows. Mm-hmm. You know,
they were pretty nice places.
They were beautiful. They were beautiful. The Colonial Inn had velvet walls, and Mommy would have my dress made to match the walls every year. You know, whatever was on there, if it was a black velvet or a beautiful shade of blue, whatever it was. Yeah. So, and then you had La Boheme, and the other one. I forgot the name of that.
But these places kind of surrounded Miami, and they
were up in Broward.
They're up in Broward County.
Broward, yeah. The Green Acres.
Mm-hmm.
That was dumpy.
So, like most kids, you didn't spend much time thinking about what your father did for a living.
No.
You just knew that he traveled a lot and he owned these nightclubs. But when did that change? What happened that you learned a little bit more about that?
Oh, Cafalva.
Senator Kefauver, who actually appeared in this room in 1950 during one of the hearings. And you saw it on TV, or?
Oh, I saw. First, I found magazines. We were living in the St. Moritz Hotel on Central Park South. Mommy and I, the boys were gone. Paul was up at West Point, and Buddy got in trouble with my mom, and he moved in with Daddy and Teddy, his new wife. And we went to the St. Moritz. And I would buy movie magazines with Gordon MacRae. I was madly in love with Gordon MacRae, and I would scotch tape the pictures all over the wall. Well, I found 3 books. One said Meyer Lansky, the other said Joe Adonis, and the other said Frank Costello. So I bought the 3 books, and I went upstairs, and I was going to read them, which I did. And my mom came home, and she said, "What were you doing?" So I showed her what I was doing. And she said, "Don't you believe anything that's written in those books. They're all a bunch of lies. These are very nice people." And then coming home from school, I saw it on television. I'd walk home from school, and I would see it on television. And she said the same thing. Just don't pay any attention to it. And then when Daddy went, he wasn't on television, but Frank was on there with his hands in nervous wreck. And I don't remember him like that. And Daddy went into a private meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And
why do you think he got a private meeting instead of public?
Because he was pulling out something that Kefauver really didn't want the public to know about, all his IOUs from gambling.
Exactly. You also mentioned one more thing about that. You mentioned Robert Montgomery had a radio show.
He had a radio show for 15 minutes every night, and he would knock everybody. It was terrible. It really was awful. And I don't know what possessed me to listen to it every night, but I did.
Did you ever talk to your father about what you saw in the newspaper or on TV?
No.
It's not something he would bring home, right?
No, he wouldn't want me doing
that. Your parents were very close with Ben and Esther Siegel. Ben Siegel, who was very important to Las Vegas. What do you remember about them? What was their connection with your family?
Well, Esther was very close to my mom. They basically were girlfriends together. And before the 2 of them got married, they were very close.
And didn't they meet their future husbands?
They met their future husbands in the barber shop on the Lower East Side. Mm-hmm. I think my mom cursed at my dad or something, to get out of the chair because she wanted a haircut. So,
unfortunately, your mother had some mental health issues.
Yeah, she was mentally ill. Yeah.
Can you explain sort of how that developed, and you ultimately left?
I don't know how it developed. All I know is it was terrible. I felt very bad leaving her, but I couldn't live like that, and I couldn't live like that anymore. I couldn't have a light on to do homework. I had to do homework with a bathroom light or the TV or something, and it was very, very difficult. She came to school one day, and I was so embarrassed because I shouldn't have been embarrassed because of the way she looked. She didn't take care of herself, and I shouldn't have been embarrassed. I'm ashamed now, But
it's probably striking because before that she had taken such great care of her.
She was stunning. She was stunning, yeah. And it was very sad.
Mm-hmm. And she kind of rallied later on for a while, right?
Not really.
No?
No. With my younger son, she sort of got a little bit, but not really. No, not really.
You mentioned that when your dad and mom got divorced, your mom had an interesting way of explaining why they should get divorced.
Her reasoning for the divorce, which she had the lawyer put in the papers, was that he changed her dinner menu. And that was the reason for the divorce.
Because they had a set...
She had a set menu every night for dinner. And that he changed the menu. He never changed the menu.
So amid all of this, you're a teenage girl. You get married very young, at age 16, to a man named Marvin Rappaport. One problem right away was that you weren't much of a cook. What happened there?
The first meal he wanted was the 3-minute boiled eggs. So I took the eggs, 3 eggs, I took them out of the refrigerator, I put them on the counter, and I called him in when the 3 minutes were up. All right? Then he decided that I should make a tongue for dinner. Did you ever see tongue? It's the most repulsive looking thing you've ever seen. So I kept changing the water and the numbers and all that. Then I had to light the oven. Meanwhile, my brother Buddy was there, and he was handicapped. And he's sitting on a chair in the living room. And I'm looking, where does the match go in this gas oven? I didn't know where it went. And all of a sudden you hear a boom, the windows pop, everything. My brother went flying off the chair. It was a mess. I was singed from...
Did you end up getting some help with...
Oh, then Buddy reported to Daddy that she almost burned everybody up, that I had that Matey came to work full time. So that was it. I didn't have to worry about anything.
A couple of weeks after you were married, you visited Las Vegas in 1954.
Yeah, first we went to Mexico, then we came here.
And you stayed at essentially your dad's hotel, which was a Thunderbird, right?
Yeah.
What was Las Vegas like at that time?
Not like this. No, it was cozier, it really was. It was nice.
And you got to visit a lot of the hotels because you guys were...
Yeah, because Marvin was looking for the moolah.
Wedding gifts, essentially, right? You go casino to casino. You also took a trip to Europe where you had lunch with Charlie Luciano.
Oh, he was
Italy.
wonderful. He was such a nice man.
Why did you meet with him, though? It was a little
Because we had no money to go home. Marvin spent all of the money. He bought clothes in Europe. He bought everything. And then he said that he bought all this stuff for me. I got a pair of sandals. I got a gondola hat and one other something, I don't know, some other little nothing, And he said, we need money, we can't. We went home on the Enviadoria, by the way, the year before it sank. And he didn't talk to me the whole way back because I called him a liar because Charlie had given him a stack of money and he said he got like maybe $50. I said, you're a liar. So he didn't talk to me the whole way home. No, but Charlie reminded me of my dad, the characteristics, everything about him. They were so alike. The mannerisms, everything. He was a very nice man. And I loved his little dog.
Did he have it there?
Oh, yeah. The Min Pin, yeah.
Marrying Marvin must have seemed like a great idea at one time, but it didn't work out very well. Can you kind of explain how that fell apart?
He was bisexual.
How did you find out about that?
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what gay was. I thought gay meant happy. I don't know. But he left me for a boyfriend of his.
Yeah.
So
you kept going, I think, to restaurants and other places, and you'd be the only woman.
I was the only female. And he told me to shut up or something. No, I told him, why don't you drop dead? That's what I said. So now he decides he's not going to talk to me anymore. So he slept on the couch, and he talked through Matey, the maid. Okay. And my aunt decided it's time to go to the restaurant and get this straightened out. And said, you don't want to talk to her? She told you to drop... Oh, he said, well, she told me to drop dead. So my aunt says to him, well, where's the widow's pension?
And Marvin, like you say, left you, and you spent a lot of time after that out on the town in New York. Where were some of the places you hung out, and who did you spend time with?
Oh, in the beginning it was just the Copa, and I would be the third wheel. I didn't date right away. I was burned.
Yeah.
And then I started going out, and I was introduced to George DeWitt, who had named that tune, from Murray the K, who had a radio program. And you should read the book.
Well, George is interesting. I don't remember him, but I read up on him, and he was a good-looking guy, right?
Oh, he was very good-looking. You would never know he had a toupee. Never, never, never. Not only did he have one, he had 3 of them in the bathroom. No. The one night was enough.
Another of your adventures during this time was with Dean Martin, a big Las Vegas name.
Well, that they can read the book about.
But you had an on and off relationship with him.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I traveled, though. I went, and I met him in places.
And did you
was
fall for him?
It was very difficult. No, it wasn't. It was a platonic sex relationship. That's what it was. He was married, he had a lot of children, and I wasn't interested in getting married.
You were having a good time in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that, maybe I'm naive, but I'm thinking back to the late 50s, early 60s as this time when, people were very prim and proper, but there were some people who were having as good a time as anybody has today, right? Still pretty.
But my problem was I had to stay away from the Copa.
Yeah.
Because Frank Costello was a partner there, and everything went back to my dad. And that's how I would get in trouble. Because he said, what are you doing cabareting all the time? Cabareting. So I started going to the Carlisle. And there I met Charlie Revson from Revlon, who was very nice. He was very nice to me. He was a very sweet man. And that's where Dean would stay.
Okay. During this time, though, you developed a problem with diet pills, which you talk about in the book. How did that get started, though?
I wanted to be a model, but this goes back, the diet pills. It goes back before Dean and all that stuff, because I was on them then. I wanted to be a model. And I still had a lot of baby fat, and I wanted to lose the weight or whatever. And the diet doctor was on Central Park South, right near the Essex House. And after the diet doctor, I'd go to the Essex House, and I met Gary Crosby there, who was the most heartbroken guy I ever met in my life, madly in love with Kathy Grant. And the father had stolen her from me.
Right.
And that's all he did was cry over this. And Rusty will say something else. But no, he was heartbroken. And no, that was just a friendly relationship, and I felt so bad. I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
And,
So the diet pills, you didn't become a model, or I guess you did a little bit.
a little bit. I modeled for a friend. She had me try 8 dresses on. I bought 7. Now then, I would once in a while I would do that, but I also kept buying from her. So, but I needed clothes to go out, and to keep up my pace. Yes,
Sure.
yes.
So things developed with the...
But my dad never said a thing. I had to get off these pills by myself. I had to do everything by myself.
You mentioned before you got off them, though, it got a little worse. You started taking some other kinds.
Yeah, I took the black beauties, whatever, and I hallucinated. I forgot what time I had taken it, and I went to reach for a telephone. I saw 3 phones. I went to grab the phone. There was only one phone there, and that scared me. I got off that one, but I didn't get off the others. So that, after I married Vince,
That's when you had
that's when I threw them out.
Sure.
When he left me.
But you were, and we'll come back to that in just a second. You were confronted around this time by an FBI agent who wanted information. And there's different views about what exactly happened, but what really happened with this FBI agent?
But you got it in the book. You got his version in the book.
Well, I mean, some people, I read another book that said that you were actually providing as much as you could to this FBI agent, but that's not what really happened.
No, I didn't. No. They came to the house. Well, they come 2 at a time. 2 of them come. It's never one. The 2 of them came. And I wasn't invited to my cousin's wedding in Hollywood, Florida. And I could have cared less. I was up in New York doing my thing, and I didn't care. Well, they thought I was upset, and I would talk about all the people that had been invited. Rat everybody out or whatever. And I said, well, I'll have to think about this. Get back to me in a couple of days. As soon as they left, I went up the block, and I put in a call to my dad. And I told him what happened. And he called me back again on another phone, and we had a conspiracy going. He told me what to say, And he had somebody that lived in New York that was giving me the information, and I would give it to them. As a matter of fact, they paid my rent 1 month. I told them I needed rent money. Like everybody was mad at me, so.
Yeah. So they believed that you were giving them good information, but in fact...
No, I wasn't. I was just saying what my dad told me to say. That's all.
Yeah. So the love of your life turned out to be Vince Lombardo, who is a mafia guy. So he was actually associated in those days with the Gambino crime family. So how did you two meet?
We met in a gay bar. His friend had no money, and he said, if you have a girl to take out, bring her down to the bar that I'm managing, and you can have a nice steak dinner. And in the back of the bar were the lesbians, in the front were the gay guys. So we get there, and it looks like a dump. Here I'm dressed up nicely, but it's raining out. And Nick goes and he sits down, and I go to the phone booth and I call my ex-husband. I'm on the phone almost the whole night. And Vince comes and says, oh, your dinner is getting cold. I said, stick it up your ass and get me a cab. I want to get out of here.
Right.
All right? So the next day, he's on Broadway, and I run into him. And I found out that he had a young son and a wife, and I said, well, you go home and take care of your son, because his son was a year younger than Gary. I said, you go home. Well, I wasted a whole year, because when he went home, she had left for Mexico with her boyfriend. And the following year, we got together and we dated for 2 years. And we would have been married 50 years.
Wow. Now, interestingly, although Vince worked for Frank Costello and Carlo Gambino, he said he'd never heard of Meyer Lansky.
No,
Is that true?
No, he never did. He says that's impossible. He said he's Jewish.
His world was
Yeah.
Italian mafia guys.
Yeah.
He was also very different from your first husband in that he insisted on not taking any money from your father, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that made your life a little different than it had been.
It did. I would hide money.
Because you would still get some money.
Yeah. I would hide it.
But you guys lived in a pretty regular lifestyle for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have money for your diet pills, for example.
No, yeah, the first year, really. No, then he left me.
Right.
And I had no money because I wasn't touching my mad money. No, I got, when we moved to Rego Park in Queens, and I would get the stuff from a drugstore there. And the pharmacist was selling to little elementary school children.
Oh.
And when Vinny came back, he closed them up. He went in with the drug people and closed them up. He got arrested. But, no, I threw the stuff down the incinerator.
Now, you mentioned that he had left you first, though.
He left me for about 4 months.
Is that because of the...
Yeah, because I wanted to fight or whatever. I wasn't a normal person. I'd sleep for days, and then I was up for days.
Mm-hmm. So he leaves. You finally dealt with the diet pills.
I dumped them. I threw them down the incinerator.
And
then I went and I found his uncle. I was so thin. I had to wear Gary's clothes, ride his bicycle up on Queens Boulevard to meet his uncle at Howard Johnson. All right. And this is another mafia person. All right. To get Vinny to come back to me, which he did.
And you guys lived, obviously, you were married until last year, and he passed away.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I wanted to ask about, one of the things that your father insisted on was that if you married him, he would have to get out of the business, as it were.
He got him out.
He helped get him out?
He got him out, yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of work did he get into after that?
Construction.
Yeah.
home repairs and things like that.
And then you moved to Florida?
Yeah, then he moved to Florida. And then he worked for the Fontainebleau, for Landsberg. And then he went to work. He had a lot of jobs. He worked for Edward Don and Company, restaurant supply. He was a great salesman.
Yeah.
He really was a good salesman. Then later on, we were in business when my dad passed away. We ended up in the janitorial and maintenance business. And I worked with him.
There was one time I think he was doing gambling junkets to Las
Yeah,
Vegas.
he took junkets out here. Yeah.
But that didn't. There was again another FBI issue. What happened there?
Yeah. He was thrown out of town.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, they wanted him, but it was your Sheriff Lamb and the FBI, and they called him in the office, and it was the night that Tiny Tim married Miss Vicky and Johnny Carson. That's when he called to tell me, I'm coming home, thank God. They wanted him to rat out my dad and all his friends. And my dad got very upset about it. He said, I wish you had the money to sue the bastards. That's exactly how he put it.
He was done with Las Vegas at that point.
Well, then he was. The junkets,
Yeah.
So,
So during the 1950s, your father spearheaded a huge investment in casinos in Havana, only to see.
well, he still had the National,
Yeah, and he had in 1958 he opens the Riviera there.
Yeah, that was his baby.
That was his baby, his dream casino. Fidel Castro takes over, and that whole dream is shattered. That must have hit him pretty hard.
Yeah.
Financially and physically, right? I mean, he suddenly had pericarditis.
That's it. Thank you.
But he was almost on his deathbed, right?
Yeah. Till the one doctor figured out what he had, and then he snapped right back.
Yeah, he was back about just. How long was that time when he was kind of out of it?
Not very long.
Yeah.
As soon as they found out what was wrong with him, and you could treat it.
Right.
It's a virus around the heart, so.
Yeah. But man, that must have hit him financially too, because he invested a lot of money in Havana.
Well, his wife blamed me in the hospital, and she went to strangle me, and it was lovely.
Why did she blame you?
Who was she going to blame, herself? No, I don't know. Well, there was no love lost between us.
So, in the 1960s were a time when there was a lot of, law enforcement crackdown on organized crime. And the FBI was breathing down your father's neck at this time. He decides to move to Israel in 1970.
He was warned by one of the FBI agents that you're going to be framed.
He goes to Israel, and you went and saw him there.
Yeah. 3 of us went, Buddy, Gary, and myself.
Mm-hmm. And but unfortunately, that didn't work out as well as he had hoped.
No.
What happened there that he had to come back?
Golda Meir said, no mafia. Golda Meir had all these benefits in this country before Israel became a state, all right? And it was spearheaded by my dad and all his people, all over the country. And she says, I don't know him.
Why do you think she did that?
She was trying to disassociate herself with him.
Yeah.
But she knew him, and my dad knew her father. Because when they had the, breaking up the Bund meetings and everything, her father, was very involved with the rabbi that got my dad involved. Rabbi Weiss, Stephen Weiss. And her father was there, so.
And I think Richard Nixon plays into this in some way.
Yeah, Nixon wanted a piece of the hotel in the Bahamas, and he said no.
Your dad had a hotel there, and he wanted a piece.
He wanted a piece of it, and he said no. And Nixon didn't like that, so he had a vendetta. Everybody with their vendettas.
So you are very, I mean, it's clear, from our conversation, you're very protective of your father's reputation. You don't like it when people call him a gangster.
No.
And you think of him more as a patriot, really. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, they broke up all the Bonn meetings with the Nazis. They were very patriotic. They took care of the waterfronts in different cities, New York and Pennsylvania, places where you had, the ships and everything. They took care of all that. And they broke up the Bonn meetings all over the country with the Nazis.
Yeah.
And
Well, and you say they did a lot of good in a lot of ways.
they did a lot of good, and then you had some Germans trying to sneak in, in the waterfront. Mm-hmm. So they protected things. That I was scared with that when they had the blackouts. That I remember.
Yeah?
Yeah, I remember that. The blackouts.
You talked about, your point of view is that, he wasn't a gangster, he was a
patriot.
Yeah. But
maybe they had the ulterior motive to get Charlie out of jail, but Charlie didn't belong in jail. Charlie was a customer of Polly Adler's. He wasn't a pimp.
You're referring to Charlie Luciano,
yeah.
who went to prison for a prostitution charge, even though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't a pimp.
Do you think your dad was different from some of the other mob guys in history? I mean, was he less violent? Did he look for peaceful ways to deal with things? I mean, what do you think?
I think so, but I don't know who was really violent, So, Red Levine I loved, and he was supposedly violent. I loved this man. He was he was just a very jolly person. Mm-hmm. And I know now what he had done. I don't care.
Yeah.
They took care of their own. They didn't go out and kill strange people like you have things happening.
Yeah.
No?
So another important point is you also don't believe that your father had anything to do with Ben Siegel's murder.
No.
And there's a lot. One of the leading theories is that the time had come with Siegel's spending on the Flamingo and so forth that it was decided that he was out of control and had to go. But you don't think your dad would have done that?
He loved him too much. He loved him more than his own brother. And no. Because we had a lunch one day and he said it hurt him very badly. When that came back to him.
You mentioned, though, you thought it was something he just couldn't stop, that he might have known it was coming?
He couldn't, he did stop it the first time.
Oh.
The first time he stopped it, but he couldn't do it. There's too many people involved with it.
Yeah. So one of the lingering mysteries for a lot of people is that when your father died in 1983, there wasn't much money left for the family. And there's a lot of ins and outs to this, but what do you think happened there?
I think his brother took it.
I mean, that's essentially it, right? He was in charge of the money at the end.
Because when Daddy had to go to Israel, he gave him everything, and he was supposed to give it back when he got back to the country, and he never did. Because I used to take care of the checkbook. I'd make deposits, and I'd do all kinds of things. And I said to him, what happened to it? So that's what happened to it.
And I think he came out and basically said, right? I mean, that there just wasn't much money for everybody else. But in fact...
He took care of everybody. So.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask just a couple quick questions. I have sort of a little change of pace and ask you some pop culture questions, because I know even people who were involved in this in the day still like to watch movies and shows about the mob. And you have an interesting perspective on The Godfather, about the character Lee Strasberg plays in the movie.
Lee Strasberg was too old for the part. He was too old. Daddy wasn't that age then. And he wasn't sickly. He was a much younger man then. Mm-hmm. At least Strasberg is a fine actor, but whoever did that was wrong.
You have even stronger feelings, though, about Boardwalk Empire. And I know you've only seen the one episode, but that's all it took. Let's talk about that.
My nephew loves that show. No, number one, when Dad, Charlie, and Ben got together with Charlie, Charlie had gotten into trouble and had gone to jail for drugs. And when he came back out and they got together, my dad made him promise never, ever to do that again. Well, in Boardwalk Empire, there's Benny with a hat, and they put drugs onto the hat, and he's going to deliver the drugs. That never happened because they were anti-drugs. That's the only scene I saw.
Well, that was a big thing for your dad. He was anti.
He was anti-drugs. So, no, that bothered me. So I told Nick Pileggi, I said, tell your buddy, Marty Scorsese, to straighten it out. He says, I can't. He doesn't listen to the writer. The writer won't listen to him. So that's it. But my nephew believes that.
Yeah. You mentioned Nick Pileggi is your friend. How do you know him?
Nick, I met Nick years ago through a pharmacist friend.
Was he ever going to write your book? Work with you?
No, but someone you know was going to write a book.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen.
We couldn't get it published.
And then ultimately you got it published last year.
Yeah.
And we were going to have you out last year, and
I was supposed to be here in June. I couldn't make it in June.
Yeah. But we're really
I've been a basket case. I just sit home and pine. Pine for my sweetheart.
Well, we're really glad you were able to come tonight. And so at this point, we'd like to take some questions from the audience, and we'll have our employees who will come around with a microphone, and you can ask, we'll probably do 5 or 6 or 7 questions, and we'll see what we can find out. But in the meantime, please, a round of applause for Sandy.
Thank you.
You have one, Jeff? Here
I am.
Do you have any recollections or remembrances of your dad's reactions during the Kennedy years, either the Bay of Pigs or anything following the assassination?
Not really, except that my dad was, the father was Frank Costello's partner in the bootlegging. You know that.
Yeah.
Joe Kennedy was his partner.
Right.
No, they were all friendly. But I don't remember him saying anything.
Do you think...
I do think he did say one thing. I think he said they killed the wrong one, the wrong brother. He might have said that.
Okay. Another question. I'm sure we have some. Here's one.
Hi, thank you for tonight. This is very interesting. You had mentioned that Richard Nixon wanted to part interest in the hotel in the Bahamas. Do you recall the name of the property? And did your dad have gaming interest in the Bahamas?
Did he what?
Have gambling in the Bahamas going on?
Yeah, he did. But I don't remember the name of the casino. Is there anything else?
I think so. Yeah.
Your two brothers, what kind of profession were they in?
What?
Can you repeat that?
Your two brothers, what profession were they in?
Buddy was a phone operator at a motel, and my brother was a graduate of West Point, and he was in the service for a while, then he became an industrial engineer. He worked for the government.
That was obviously a very proud moment for your father when your
Yes.
brother went to West Point.
Yeah.
Was that, I mean, that was right after the war, as I recall, pretty soon.
He graduated in 54.
54. Do you remember anything about that time you guys went? I think you guys visited.
Oh, visited a lot. Daddy used to go up and watch them parading, he loved that. He would go up there. Well, Paul originally went to a military school not far from there in Corning. And Dad and Charlie had a glass manufacturing place because Charlie got a contract with the glassware at the Waldorf Astoria because he was living in the Waldorf Towers and he got a contract for the glassware. So,
Miss Lansky, did you get any movie offers on your book?
no. You know anybody?
There you go.
Okay. First of all, I believe that hotel in Bahamas was Lucky Beach that your dad owned.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And I would just like to hear about your process of writing your book. Was it a long time in the making? Have you wanted to do it? And how do you feel?
Originally, my husband and I were writing a book about my dad, that we wanted to get everything straight, tell the true story about him. And nobody was interested. And that went on for a number of years. And your friend Rick Perello was writing.
Perello.
Yeah, he was writing one. And I think he's mad at me now because I ended up going another way. I couldn't get published, so we went another way. And Nick liked this writer, and
what was the process of him
I only
gathering
spoke to him on
information?
the phone. I never met him. I never met him. In 6 months, he had the book done,
And it was all on the phone.
all on the phone, with a few emails. Yes and no. If the publisher had edited, I would have been very happy, and if they had helped a little, but they didn't help, with promoting the book. And it's hard to do it yourself. My son and his friend did a wonderful job in the Tampa area, and that went around the country with, radio interviews and things like that, and television, and all kinds of things. But you need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Did you travel to Cuba with your father?
When I was 2 years old.
What is your opinion of our relationship with Cuba now?
Well, hopefully something will happen because there is property there. I won't live to see it, but my grandson will, My son and because Paulie and we're not going to make it, Because it's only the three of us that are the heirs. So,
Right.
yeah.
The other
Yeah,
questions?
I'm from Hungary, so sorry about the accent. So my question is it true that Lucky Luciano saved your father's life?
Yeah, what?
Is it true that Lucky Luciano saved your father's life?
No, Benny did.
Benny? Because in the movie, Lucky Luciano.
No,
Yeah.
Benny saved him.
How did that work?
Well, it was a fight in the street.
So because on that movie.
Which movie?
Mob?
Which
Mobsters?
one?
Mobsters?
Mobsters.
Oh, I like that movie.
So is it true?
No, they're a figment of the writer's imaginations and everything, The worst was the one Richard Dreyfuss was in, because my dad was not a religious man.
And the other question is that when they made the movie, did they ask the family members how it happened?
No.
So basically,
He's considered a public figure.
Yeah.
so have you been threatened in your life ever when you were a kid? Because you were the daughter of somebody who was in the public, so I mean, have you been threatened and protected by your father?
What?
Where he wants to know if during your life, Because your father was such a public figure, if you ever were threatened or you were ever were...
No, they would have given me back. No.
We have one here.
I think my mom worried a little bit, because of the Lindbergh baby. But they wouldn't have kept me. That's all.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you. I really appreciate to see the other side, the side the history doesn't tell us. The men, the family, the dad, the uncle. That's the other side that we don't get to hear or see. So I really, really appreciate this book.
They were loving parents. They were all loving parents. My girlfriend Maria, when her parents died, she did the makeup on them.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Miss Lansky, I don't mean to get too personal with you, but whatever became of your son, DJ?
He's in a home.
And he has been really most of his life, right?
Yeah. I couldn't take care of him. I have a great-grandson. Actually, it's my husband's great-grandson, but I consider him mine. And those parents are just wonderful. I could never have done what they do. I couldn't do it. And they're absolutely superb. But I could never do that. And he's a grown man now, so it's...
You ever see him?
No. Because I couldn't accept the fact I couldn't have him at home.
Right.
So it's very difficult, But I see the great-grandchild, and he's wonderful. And that's about it.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. We're going to have a book signing next.